Do you reckon the future's bright?
No, I think these interviews are softball or one-sided and sometimes both. And I think they leave voters far less informed than genuine scrutiny that you might get on the mainstream media.
Have you seen a 2GB interview?
Yes, of course. And they will go hard on politicians of both sides.
They do not always go hard. They do not. I think that we need to accept that sometimes we do not go as hard as we could either.
Your vote has never been more important.
Your car, your youth,
your job, your wages, your Medicare card.
Your teeth and your brain are part of your body.
our plan has gas and a lot of gas.
We intend to run a very serious campaign.
Keep smiling.
Put that aside, though. You've got to ask why.
They're a diverse bunch.
I'm sure they're big fans of Yumcha, just like I am.
And your choice has never been more clear.
You do you, but we know what our focus is.
So get your priorities right when it comes to this nation. We've had enough.
Hello and welcome to Your Vote. I'm Amanda Copp and we can officially say we're heading to the polls next week. What has felt like a never-ending election campaign is slowly but surely wrapping up. This week, the latest and most concerning developments in the Trump tariff debacle, the Greens supporting influencers who are threatening to sue the Liberals, and the pretty insane early voting numbers just 2 days after polls opened, making us ask the question, has this election already been decided? To chat about it all, let's welcome back Amy Ramikis, Pajama Politics host on Instagram and also Chief Political Analyst at the Australia Institute. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
And one of my 9 publishing colleagues, Deputy Federal Editor Nick Bonyhady. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Guys, I think we can all agree that it was the slowest and most sombre week of campaigning. It started with Easter and then came to the news that Pope Francis had passed away. Both sides suspended their campaigns for a day out of respect before picking up again for 9's great debate, which kicked off like this.
Prime Minister, you couldn't lie straight in bed, honestly. This is unbelievable.
You can go to abuse.
No, well, it's just,
you can go to
the
personal
reality.
abuse. That's a sign of desperation, Peter, frankly.
But it ended like this.
What are 3 things you admire about him?
3. Look,
We only ever prepare for one. This is a problem.
Let me say this: he bats way above his average with Kirrily. He has a terrific family. Longevity in politics. We've been in Parliament for basically the same amount of time, almost. And Peter, in that time as well, has had a tough seat that he's contested consistently over a long period of time.
I admire the Prime Minister's fathership. Nathan's a great young bloke. And similarly with Jodie. I've come to know Jodie and meet her at different events and have a great deal of respect for them both. Acknowledge the Prime Minister's support of AUKUS from opposition. And AUKUS, when we negotiated it, it was about underpinning our security for the next century. And that's 3, isn't it?
A very rare showing of kindness there. Amy and Nick, what are your reactions to that?
I think it shows that there is a genuine truce in this election when it comes to family. You haven't seen either side make hay of either side's property purchases, when their children have appeared on the campaign trail or not. That has been a boundary that they've really clearly respected. And the other thing it shows is that they are deep political creatures who have been in this parliament a really long time. They are creatures of the institution right the way down to their boots.
Amy, nice to see.
I mean, I would agree with Nick on that, but can I just say I hate those questions. I do not care if our leaders get along. Like, I don't care who they are as people. I care about what they do with power. And I think those questions, they use them as political animals to humanise themselves, but it doesn't matter if they're having chats in their offices or having little jokes across the dispatch box or if they like each other's families. It matters about what they think about the direction of the country, the vision for Australia's future, and how they're going to use that power. So I am never a fan of those questions.
Okay, earlier this month, Donald Trump mocked world leaders just hours before slamming his trading partners with sweeping tariffs.
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir.
Well, now it seems he maybe should have considered those deals. The International Monetary Fund has released its World Economic Outlook, and it seems the US and China will suffer the most. Nick, what do you think this actually means for the world?
It is a grim period that we are heading into. It means that people will be spending less, that businesses will be investing less, that we may well have more inflation, because the bottom line is that with Trump on economics, you have no idea what he's going to be doing tomorrow, in an hour. These tariffs could be extended, paused, tripled. We just don't know. And so if you're a business that's trying to work out where do I build a factory, for example, you are terrified and confused all at once. And so there's every chance that you might just not build it altogether. So the bottom line is we're probably just going to be a bit poorer than we would be otherwise for a couple of years.
Yeah, so it's sounding pretty bad. Amy, what does it mean for people here in Australia?
Well, no nation is, immune from a trade war if that's what happens. And I mean, given that China is our biggest trading partner, the United States is one of our closest allies, a war between those two is going to have ramifications for Australia. One, where you've got to try and manage the relationship if you're in government. But two, we get goods from both countries. If China is suddenly returning planes back to the United States and saying these planes are not so good for us, that it will have ramifications for Australia. But I think it points to what Nick was talking about how we are in very uncharted waters. We don't actually know what America is doing. And I think that the world at large, Canada, Europe, the UK, as well as India, Japan, South Korea and China, are starting to reorganise themselves around that chaos. And it could mean that we are going to have some decisions to make as Australians about which direction we want to go as that landscape changes.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of flip-flopping. Do you think, Nick, that we may have almost given up on predicting what President Trump is going to do?
Yes, to a marginal extent, because whilst he's highly unpredictable, when he says that he is going to do something, he generally does in some form. He might back away from it later. But for example, with tariffs, Trump has talked about being a fan of tariffs for decades. He was a fan of tariffs when Japan was the rising economic power rather than China, for example. So when he talks about wanting to try and revive American manufacturing, when he talks about trying to regain a trade surplus, whatever the merits of those things, it's clear that that actually is his intent. And I think that the government believes that and is trying to work around that. Whether that is successful or whether it works long term, given his mercurial qualities, that's another question.
Now, we are in a campaigning period. Donald Trump has cast a long shadow over this campaign. Amy, do you think that it's going to have an impact on how people are voting?
Yeah, I think it will, because I think people are looking at what Donald Trump is doing, and it is batshit crazy what he is doing, and they want to try and work out what Australia's position is going to be there and who is going to guide them through it. And I think it's one of the reasons why, Peter Dutton has backed away from any sort of MAGA or populist Trump-style policies or rhetoric, because it really started to hurt him when he was being called Timu Trump. And that's because voters started going, oh, not so sure about that. We'd kind of like to go in a bit of a different direction. And we've seen Peter Dutton completely reverse ferret, where he just is not even touching any of that. And we've seen Anthony Albanese start to talk about the United States in the same way that we talk about China, where we agree where we can and disagree where we must when it comes to issues of trade. And I think that is more towards what voters want to see. They want to see Australians stand up against, all international countries, maintain sovereignty, and they're thinking who is going to do that for the next 3 years.
Certainly some interesting times ahead, guys. Okay, time to check out what's making waves in the social media world this week. The Liberal Party's removed a social media post after an influencer threatened to sue. Holly McAlpine posted this video in March with the Green Senator Larissa Waters.
The Greens just protest. They don't actually get anything done. Well, we do love protests and we want to protect people's right to protest because that's how social change gets made.
But not long after, the Liberals posted this version of it.
Greens just protest. They don't actually get anything done. Authorised by Ahurst Liberal Canberra.
Nick, do you reckon this is a bit of a sneaky tactic from the Liberal Party?
Yeah, they're kind of playing silly buggers here, right? This is a chance to court a bit of controversy, to tap into an influencer who's supporting the Greens and twist it. It's a bit dodgy. I don't know if it's quite crosses the border into being anything where you get lawyers involved, although she has. So put it in that kind of grey zone for me.
Now to some honest ads. One that's just been released that at first appears to be anti-liberal.
In times like these, we need a strong leader, someone who'll fight for the people struggling to buy their fifth investment property, for the foreign-owned companies that pay all taxes, and for Gina's dream of turning Australia into America Light. Project Gina. And that man is Peter Dutton.
But it's also anti-Labor. It's actually endorsing an independent in Peter Dutton's own electorate.
When you put all this together, you might be thinking of voting for another major party, like the one that approved 10 new coal mines in a climate crisis. Or maybe for this community independent who'd represent Dixon for once, rather than Santos and Gina.
Amy, these viral videos may well be the only political information that people are getting. What do you think about that? Is it worrying?
I don't think it is worrying, because I think there's always been disruption in the media space. You know, like millennials did it when they started with podcasts and bringing in social media into their reporting. And this is the next step. And this is how Gen Z are representing themselves. I think as long as the information stacks up, as long as you trust the person who is giving you the information, are you complaining about the medium or are you complaining about the message? And I just think it's something that maybe media just needs to get used to, where things are going to change and you can either get on board that train or kind of be left in obscurity.
Well, hopefully we're getting on the train with this kind of thing. Finally, a heartwarming message from Bob Catter himself.
Jesus was crucified. Jesus died so that we might live. That's what Easter is about. 40% of the world's population acknowledge Jesus as their blessed Lord and Saviour. We had a beautiful little pop-out, a nativity scene of Jesus, Mary and Joseph in the stable, and we gave it out to all the supermarkets in Cairns, and all the independents all put it up, and Woolworths and Coles refused to put it up. So I'll tell you what happened to the money changers in the temple. They burnt in hell. And there's a message for the likes of Woolworths and Coles.
Jesus to supermarkets. I can't quite make the link myself. Stay with us after this, my interview with Sam Fricker, and we dive into the record-breaking early voter turnout. Now, we know this election is one that'll be decided by millennials and Gen Z. And because of that, online influencers and content creators have become the go-to interviewers for many of our politicians. One of the most popular, Olympic diver Sam Fricker, has a following of millions, and he's interviewed the likes of Peter Dutton, Chris Bowen, Zali Steggall and Clive Palmer. So why are the leaders from all sides choosing his platform? I spoke to him a little earlier. How do you go from being an Olympic diver to interviewing politicians? How did that come about?
Well, the podcast was really a way for me to learn outside the pool. I know that my diving won't last forever, and I started the podcast to learn from high performers about what they do and how they do it. I did ScoMo. He was my first politician. It was the first time I'd ever sat down with the Prime Minister and asked them questions, and I found that fascinating. Just asking questions like, when you're flying into the US to meet the president, like, how are you feeling? As an individual, are you nervous? Are you excited? Trying to more touch on the personal side.
Having a former Prime Minister as your first political interviews, a pretty good get.
I'm not that much of a political guy. The reason we've done so many politicians recently is just because it's so culturally relevant with the election coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how are your followers reacting to that?
I think it's been up and down. But to be expected, it's up and down everything. Like, people tell me how to dive, how to drive my car. People tell me all kinds of things. And most of it is always positive. People are always positive. And in person, everything's been so positive. People come up, they say, oh, thank you for talking to that person. Thank you for interviewing this person. Good job asking those questions.
You've spoken to Peter Dutton. Hopefully, there's a Prime Minister interview there somewhere along the way. How do you think they're doing this campaign?
I think they've all stepped up their games on social media. I think they could all do more. A lot of things I see politicians do in election time, I think, why not do that all year round? Whether it's communicating a message super strongly or some of the really information-heavy content pieces that get the word out. So I think that they are doing a good job at socials. It can always be better. But I have seen a massive ramp up in social media content, especially reels, like short-form videos.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
The new face of political interviewing. Nick, do you reckon the future's bright?
No, I think these interviews are softball or one-sided and sometimes both. And I think they leave voters far less informed than genuine scrutiny that you might get on the mainstream media.
Have you seen a 2GB interview?
Yes, of course. And they will go hard on politicians of both sides.
They do not always go hard. They do not. I think that we need to accept that sometimes we do not go as hard as we could either.
Of course, there's variance in the media, but if you play it on average, an interviewer who is chasing clout, who needs that politician to come back to them again and again and to find other politicians because they don't have the support of a mainstream media brand behind them, is more likely to be softball than a genuine media organisation.
All right, some disagreements here in the studio. Well, both sides have made some big funding announcements on the political side of things. The coalition will spend $90 million over the next 10 years to address domestic and family violence, as well as cracking down on drug crime and posting crimes online. They also say they'll increase defence spending by $21 billion over the next 5 years. They'll also give tax offsets and deductions to new businesses. It's a bit of an economic boost. Labor, on the other hand, will spend a few million on more support for domestic violence victim survivors, including more crisis accommodation, plus $78 million to fast-track qualifications to get 6,000 more tradies on the tools. They also have plans to lock in penalty rates with legislation in the next term of Parliament. So a big week in particular for the coalition. Some substantial announcements there, but has it come too late? A record number of Australians have cast their ballot in the first 2 days of early voting, and I reckon this guy put it best.
The older you get, the less patient you get.
So 542,000 people voted on the first day, including that man. And after 2 days, more than 1 million had cast their votes. Amy, people have already made up their minds, it seems.
Yeah, it has. I mean, the old way of campaigning where you saved like your best announcements till the end is probably not the way you can do it anymore if you're a political campaign, because the moment that those voting booths open, people are going to flock to them and then they're going to turn off, which means that they've made up their mind quite a bit earlier.
Nick, do you reckon that the coalition, they had some big announcements this week, defence in particular. Do you think they left that one too late?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the scale of early voting was underestimated at this election. It's jumped like something like 70% in these early days from just the contest in 2022. And those voters aren't hearing what the coalition has to say on a really significant area of the nation's defence.
One more week to go until polling. Stay with us. After the break, our panellists decide who won the week. Each week, our Channel 9 reporters on the trail are sending in their high, their low, and their buffalo. A bit of an interesting one for the week, the buffalo being something surprising. Federal politics reporter Liz Daniels has been with the Prime Minister.
In transit on the Albo bus, and my high this week is definitely being back out on the road. There's nothing better than being part of the action. But my low is that being out on the road means that I'm not there with you guys. But Amanda, doing an excellent job in the chair, thank you. And my buffalo this week would be, we knew we were flying to the west, but we thought we'd be landing in Perth, and then, surprise, we landed in Busselton instead and drove out to Collie, and that's an area I used to holiday as a kid, so that was a nice surprise for me this week.
Nice little shout out there for me. Thanks, Liz. Now here's political editor Charles Croucher, who's been with Peter Dutton.
Hi from beautiful southeastern Tasmania. We're at a winery where Peter Dutton is just sampling some of the local drop, which sounds like a pretty good way to go about an afternoon. High-low buffalo for the week. The high was Channel 9's debate. I thought it was great to hear some of what drove the leaders, a bit of character revealed about what they're passionate about and why they want such an important job. The low is the stories we get every year about people, at every election, about people attacking campaign posters. They seem to get weirder every year, and I know both sides and all the independents are complaining about it. We've seen a bit of that kind of sort of shenanigans, I guess is the word, that's happening as people go to vote, which just makes it so much harder for all those people volunteering their time to try and get someone elected. And the buffalo here in Tasmania, they have got it right when it comes to bakeries. Not sure what they do, not sure how they do it. Tasmanian bakeries are worth the trip alone.
Those poor posters. And now our favourite time of the week, a look back at a few of the lighter moments.
I have an update on Vegemite Gate.
Go, mate. Is it? I mean... I can't remember. I don't know what that means.
The Easter Bunny. Come on.
I'm going to explain preferential voting with beer in like 40 seconds.
Prime Minister, you couldn't lie straight in bed, honestly.
I'll tell you what happened to the money changers in the temple. They burnt in hell.
What are 3 things you admire about him?
Yeah, sure.
3.
Got reaction as well, I'm just saying.
Have you ever been in love?
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'll get you guys.
The second preference, beer votes get put onto the next person. This guy, one of this person, just keep going.
That's 3, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, you know what?
Sure.
The longest answers you've given tonight.
So that's our winning candidate, and none of the beer, every beer vote counts.
No wasted votes, baby.
The bunnies are watching, the trail's watching.
They saw heads They don't have a party, this guys.
You left her on.
Back to back.
Yes! 3 in a row.
Yeah, I reckon that Vegemite one was pretty good. Amy, did you have any favourite moments from this week?
I mean, every time I close my eyes, that's a favourite moment where I can switch them all off. So.
Nick, anything more positive?
I'm thrilled that Vegemite's back in Canada.
Okay, and before we go, a quick show of hands. Nick, who was the winner for you this week?
Albo by default. He's kept his momentum. Not that much has changed in the contest.
And what about you, Amy?
Everyone who has voted early and will vote early because they can switch off and live their lives free of all of this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, to you both. That's week 4 of the campaign, and your vote, we're over the halfway hump, and May 3 cannot come soon enough. We'll be back at the same time next week. In the meantime, see you on 9 Now, the socials and the telly. Bye-bye.